Hey everyone, I'm Tim.
And I'm the only Luddite in the OSINT world, Chris.
And welcome to the OSINT Output. Today is our first episode of 2026. Brand new one.
Yeah. When did we do the interview? I don't remember. It was a little while ago.
Which one?
The one that we had to redo.
Oh, that one? Oh, I think it's been about, 4 weeks since the actual interview. And then we published the week after. But yeah, it's been a month since we've done anything on the podcast, which is common for the holidays. People don't typically.
Oh, that's right. We did have holidays. I forgot about that.
Yeah. There was at Christmas and then New Year's. People couldn't travel. So, plus I had a death in the family. So that kind of threw everything to the right. But now we're together.
Yeah. I've missed you, dude. How you been? You good? You all right?
Been doing well. Get my knowledge up there. Trying to finally finish my degree that I've been slacking on.
I mean, you're getting there. Are you using Slack for your degree? Because that would help you slack on it.
If I never had to use Slack again, it'd be just the most wonderful day of my life. Does your company use Slack?
No.
Oh yeah. It's luckily that you do all that stuff internal then.
Yeah, we don't. That's not what we're about.
But the reason why I bring up Kali is because I was sitting here trying to install, because I never did install it because I don't look at SQL files a whole lot. I was trying to install a free SQL viewer called dbeaver, and while I was trying to install it, it decided to crash because I had to update the packages first for the rest of, just program files for the rest of the.
You need to do more SQL injections. I don't know anything about what's going on here. I'm a Luddite.
No, you're gonna go ahead and say that. Not trying to find information from another SQL database that I don't have access to currently. One that I do have access to that was brought to us by Chris today that I've known about for a while, and I'm pretty sure it is a repost by someone, but he could have gotten the most recent Breachforums and then downloaded that. But anyways, so Chris, tell us about the news story today.
Well, so I was just reading, and really, so this, like, I got here from a search string that you'll appreciate, where I went funny cyber news stories, and so I came across James. And I was really excited about that because that's my alias on a couple of places, just James. And James put out a manifesto about how he's a hacker, not of a generation, but of all generations. He's a predator, according to him, and he goes after systems of power, right? So he put out this real fun to read manifesto. Where he talks about how he's the best in the world at this. He's lived through this. His sources are NSA, GCHQ for all of his information, how he's undiscoverable, and then how he's upset with some of the current hacking groups and the website Breachforums.
Not to disenfranchise any other hackers out there who don't identify as male. It's just James is a male name.
Yes. So I know nothing about James. James could be a lady. Could be anywhere in between.
Yeah. But the manifesto is very fun to read. It comes in the old style of the hacker manifestos from the 80s and 90s. And we'll link the URL to the actual report from RE Security in the description of this podcast. But one really, really cool thing is they actually have a link to download the entire data set for Breachforums so you can view the usernames and passwords for people that have logged in.
Yeah. Out of all, he released 323,000 records or more.
Yep.
Some of the people he called out in the manifesto, he's like, hey, this is your screen name. This is your actual name. Here's your birthday. And I'm upset with you. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, because I don't have the eloquence of James. But I did bring out a quote that I do want to read. These last years, operators like shiny hunters, scattered hunters, and many others have appeared to you as greedy, selfish bands of nerds, lacking any compass, any of those moralities you have spoused. You have not seen the truth. You have not seen the idea. You have not seen the project, blinded by your relentless adhesion to the powers of our time. Those children have been mine. They grew as I did. They grew because I did. And so in that, he's kind of taking credit for a lot of these other hacker groups. And then if you continue on in the manifesto, he's like, now I must destroy you. And then here's a bunch of accounts.
I can kind of see that because Scattered Lapis, Shiny Hunters, all and those who kind of joined into a consortium, if you will, into an organization, they kind of do their own thing, and if they happen to align,
if they happen to have the same goal or target or whatever, then they work together-ish.
Yeah, but this one, those groups specifically, they decided to band together to start taking down targets all over the world, kind of indiscriminately. And I think there were 3 hackers that were arrested in the UK last year towards the end of the 4th quarter, and I think 3 of them were said to have been involved in Scattered Lapis at one time.
Okay.
Or attributed back to them.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of those, I think over the last couple of years, there's been like 2 or 3 picked up here or there. Which, so that kind of, goes along with, they've been really active in the background. And I mean, if you remember a couple episodes ago where we talked about the Salesforce hack, these guys were a part of that.
Yeah. And that Salesforce hack and exploit, it has gone on to impact dozens of companies. There was Qantas that got impacted from Australia. So it was a huge hack.
Yeah.
And like, if you're not familiar with Salesforce, I've never heard of that. It's a very popular CRM software where people can go in and put customers' information, and it has quotes for how much things cost. It can have literal notes of conversations between employees, internal, and then what they're talking to when it could be like the president of another company. And so if you got that correspondence, you could potentially social engineer your way into that person's good graces. All you have to do is spoof an email to that person from the domain. So you could pretend like you're coming from a contest and you're talking to a supplier, and you could spoof the domain coming back from contest and then get them to spill all their guts about quotes, where they get everything from.
Yep.
It could be huge. So,
and then I will say that one of the moderators or admins of Breachforums, who was called out in the manifesto, did post something about how all the information released was old. And then he actually mentioned the PGP key that James also released to Breachforums.
Oh, was that let me look at it. Because I downloaded the private key. So let me see if I can look at it and see if it's the PGP key. I don't know if it's a private key. You can look at it real quick to see if it is. Yeah, it is the private key for it. Which I don't know what the password is, but they managed to get the private key.
And then one of my favorite lines in the manifesto, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but essentially Mr. James here, or Miss James here, I'm unsure, draws the line at attacking the French.
Will not attack the French.
Yeah. Hey, wait, you really messed up when you crossed France. So this may be a French person. I don't know.
France doesn't F around.
Yeah. Or Corsican.
But yeah, this is awesome having this data set for anyone who is interested in cybersecurity research. Because first of all, I would like to think, this is just me, but I know it's not true, that the people who went and used Breachforums used a pseudonym, first of all.
Yeah.
Right? You did not use your real name, or you used your alias that you're known under for certain activities like hacking or other illegal activities. Yeah. And then also you used a password that you've never used before. But I don't believe that. The reason why is because when raid forums, and if you want to read the article about the whole history, you can, but how Breachforums got started was raid forums is up in 2022. It ultimately got taken down through a tandem effort of U.S. government organizations, namely the FBI, And then one of the moderators from Breachforums, whose moniker was Pom Pom Heron, went on to establish Breachforums.
Hello, kitty.
Yeah. Went on to establish Breachforums, and then Pom Pom Heron got arrested, who FBI released as Ryan Connor Fitzpatrick was arrested in northeastern United States. I think it was New York, if I'm not mistaken. And then Breachforums V3 came up, and that's how Shiny Hunters came along.
Yep.
Who was running it? But the reason why I say, like, I'm pretty sure they didn't reuse. They did not reuse passwords is because Pom Pom Heron actually logged into the website he was controlling without a VPN, and that was one of the ways that the FBI managed to geolocate where this dude was located at, because he was logging in it via his cell phone and then also at his house without using a VPN or using Tor or any other obfuscation techniques to determine where he was coming from.
I would like to take a moment to highlight my influence on Tim, because Tim doesn't normally go into the history of stuff, and he's got really excited to talk about the history of this, and normally that's on my side, so I've influenced Tim to recant his histories.
This has been, like, just in general, the whole Breachforums thing has been going on for a very, very long while, and the database breach, and it's been reposted so many times to other hacking forums. But I want you to think about something. You always hear the saying is like, there's the honor code among thieves, don't screw over another thief, right? They kind of held that to themselves. They're like, hey, don't screw over other hackers. Don't reveal our personal information. So as soon as one person posted the database for Breachforums V2, which Pom Pom Heron was in control of, it was almost instantly taken down by a moderator. So for a very short amount of time, if you were consistently monitoring these forums, you could potentially download that file. But again, it's hundreds of thousands of rows of credentials. So, and it's not a
and hopefully pseudonymous.
Yeah, and it's not a very large file. It's only 612 megabytes that I was able to download to my VM. But still, having that available with those usernames and passwords, they more than likely will continue using those in the future. And I don't know if Baphomet was ever captured, because they were also an admin in control of Breachforums as well.
It's you can never overestimate the ability of the human to reuse usernames and passwords or credentials across different mediums or platforms.
But anything else on this one, Chris?
I don't know, man. I think everyone should read the manifesto, because there's a lot of fanciful language in there, and so I personally love reading manifestos, and I try to read as many of them as I can because of how inflating they are for the author. So I always enjoy the fantastical stuff, and then if you can actually read between all of the fantastical stuff, you can get kernels of their motivations and things like that. So I encourage people to go and read the manifesto.
This is especially true if you're in the business of hunting these dudes down, because I'm thoroughly under the impression, and always have been, if you are adamant about getting people and making them no longer do the thing that is bad for everyone else, you have to kind of really understand why they think the way that they think. So you kind of ingrain yourself in the community.
Yeah. And then there's a good general theme in this one of how the purpose of hacking is to intimidate those in power and not exploit those without power.
And that's kind of been a really huge common theme for hackers.
Yeah, a lot of these communities, and that's one of the things I appreciate about it is they are trying to level the playing field in one way or another. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong. Don't come after me. I'm not against you. I'm not targeting you. But it's I enjoy seeing that side of it, and understanding, or at least attempting to understand the culture.
Yeah, I personally have no strong opinions one way or the other. Just if you're going to go after a website and you manage to impact it, just let us know as soon as possible. That's just me. That's why whenever ransomware groups go out and they impact a website and they say, hey, we got all of your contents, look at the samples that we released, and then if you don't pay us in 7 days, we're going to release all this. Thank you.
Oh, so another candidate that I read about, and I won't go into a ton of details because I didn't actually dive into it like this story, was some guy in the UK got hit up with ransomware, and he paid the $747 fine, and I forget what that translated to. And then so when he paid it and the person accepted the payment, he got into their system, pulled all their decryption keys and the people they infected, and just went and distributed those to everyone else that this guy hit with his ransomware.
That's awesome. But, so definitely check this story out. We'll link it in the description so you can read it. They have a breakdown in here of, because they did log the IP addresses and the registration times for when people went on there and registered for the website from their IP addresses, and they have it broken down by country. And this is really huge, and I laughed about this. If you're going to go to a website that is mainly known for hosting content of a questionable nature, I would really, really recommend that you don't use a very, very popular domain. That's just me, because, or one that keeps dramatic amounts of logs, because it has a breakdown in a bar chart here, and gmail.com is the most used domain with over 200,000 uses in a 300 some thousand.
Yeah, 323,000 plus.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, there are some on here like onionmail.org, there's 2.mail, there's pm.me, which is Proton, and then there are some other ones on here that are less known, less used. So
a lot of people using Google to get on that breach forum.
yeah, it's very, very easy to set up a Gmail account. Extremely easy. To maintain it is a different story. Just like with Outlook, people use Outlook emails all the time, but very, very difficult to maintain those because they start questioning why you set one up and instantly started using it for this heavy activity, whatever it may be, especially if you're using it for registering for a lot of other websites instantly as a sock puppet. So they're very, very sensitive about that. But yeah, very easy to set one up. And I think this kind of flows nicely into our main topic for today, which is something that I've taught a lot about, which is ethics and legality for open source intelligence.
I mean, if you go back to, I think it was our very first episode where I said that, I was talking about this podcast and OSINT, and a colleague of mine went, "What's the difference between OSINT and stalking?" And I said, "The purpose."
Yeah, and even if it is OSINT and stalking, sometimes they can be synonymous. Like if it's argued in court, they could be like, "Why did you go to this person's website, download all of this data, and keep it in perpetuity when you're supposed to not do that?" Well, I did it on behalf of my customer. So, if you're just real quick off the top, let's talk about the difference between ethics and legality, okay? Because those two words are not synonymous at all.
No, they're not.
So when it comes to ethics, my own personal definition that I try to roll with, and given my background working for the government, and of course, if you've ever worked for any government entity, if you were to do some of the things that you did for the government in your personal life, you'd be like, that's very questionable, right? Especially depending on the government entity that you worked for. But my own personal definition for ethics is doing what's right according to your norms and values of your society, and then also your personal values that you develop over time. So fitting in with your society, which is mainly your family unit when you're younger, but as you get older, the connections you have, and then whatever personal values that you start understanding and developing as you get older. What do you think, Chris?
I think if you're just a reasonable and a good human, then you're on the right side of ethics and morality.
There was this one quote. I think it was Christoph Waltz said it. I think a reporter asked him, "Hey, how did you play Colonel Hans Landa so good in Inglourious Bastards?" And he replied with, he thinks he's the good character.
Yeah.
He thinks he's doing what's right. So again, going back to what's good for a society, all those individuals in Nazi Germany thought they were doing the right thing because
Yeah.
number one, they were being ordered, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing what's
Yeah.
right according to my superiors. And then also they're telling me this is what is right for Deutschland. Like I have to do
Yeah.
this. So good is a completely subjective term.
It is, but I think being a good human makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And if you're doing what's best for the human race as a whole, hopefully doing something right. Google's number one rule, what is it? Don't be evil. Which is covered up
Is
by
that really their number one
it's
rule?
covered up as I understand it, right? I'm being facetious here. But as a Google insider reached out to me and said they covered it up with their revenue profits from last year. So yeah. And then so ethics in general is it's a construction of things that you believe, right? I think we can probably agree on that, right?
Yeah.
But legality, these are not things that people believe.
No, these are things that are written and tell you what you can and cannot do.
Yes, absolutely. There are some that are ambiguous when it comes to what is written down and what must be followed, and there are some that are very black and white. So when it comes to legality, this is something that an organization, typically a government, sets in place and says you will not do these things or you will do these things because if you don't, there are consequences associated with these actions.
Yeah. I look at the law and I bifurcate it. Is there are those people that read the law to know the law, to follow the law. And then there are those people that read the law, to know what they can get away with.
That
without crossing legal lines.
There was somebody
I've been both of those people.
Again, just reinforcing, Chris and I aren't lawyers, right? We aren't legal experts. We're not allowed to give legal advice. Just
don't come to me for legal advice.
Yeah, we'll be like, hey, we've done this in the past and talk from best experiences, but yeah.
I just told you that sometimes I read the law to know what I can get away with. Don't come to me for this.
Okay. And the reason why I said talking about the breach kind of goes well into the next part of our episode is because what's the ethics behind using that database that you got from James's release for your own personal needs or for an organization that needs it? So like that, you have all these usernames and passwords. Can you use that for OSINT?
I mean, so you can have it, and then depending on what you do with it, if you work for an organization whose job it is to track these people, yeah, you're going to use it in one way or another. If you use it as an organization or for an organization where it's your job to deliver information to someone that can develop TTPs to counter hacking efforts, yeah, you're going to use it. If I'm using it just to track these people and, go harass them at their house, then no.
And when it comes to just having and owning this data, there are certain things you have to have in mind for other societies as well, because certain countries and certain international organizations, the laws governing people's data can be quite strict as compared to other things around the globe. So, for example, in the United States, once you get a person's data, whatever it could be their license plate, it could be their real name, it could even be their SSN, because there are databases out there that have people's social security numbers. You're, for the most part, barring some injunction or somebody coming to your house saying delete it, you're allowed to keep that data. California is different, though. California is the only state in the United States where they're starting to enforce more strict governance of their citizens' data. But the EU, totally different story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you were to download some of their citizens' data, if they ever delete that data offline or attempt to remove it, you have to abide by that decision.
By their wishes.
Exactly. So if they reach out to you and they say, hey, I know that you requested this data at one point in time because you were conducting an investigation, I've chose to remove that data or it's no longer available, delete it, you have to do that, or otherwise you risk a lawsuit.
Yeah. Know the laws of the country that you're practicing in.
And then also what you're collecting on.
And then the laws of the countries that you're touching, and then what you're collecting on. And like, you have to understand all of that stuff to ensure that you're doing it not necessarily the right way, but a better way.
So one of the definitions that I've always used for a long time, and I still believe it, is everything that is on the internet is considered publicly available.
Yes.
So anything that you can go and look at as a person, as a reasonable person, right?
Yep.
If they were to go online, put in the website name and go there and they can view it, that's considered publicly available. Now, what isn't publicly available, Chris?
Well, so I mean, you could argue that things in databases are not publicly available unless you have the credentials to access that database. Now, if it's for purchase, it's publicly available. If anyone can, like you said, get there and look at it, that's public. Medical records should not be public. That should be restricted.
So publicly available, you have to log in to view it.
If anybody can get access to it.
Oh, so if it's a free database,
Yep. Or if it's a paid, like if it's $8.99 or whatever, or if they're allowed to sell it to you based on what they collect, because there are some agencies that collect information that they don't sell it to anybody. Some of it's for Leo purposes, some of it's for other things.
yeah. So I want to expand on that definition just a little bit. So rather than just something that you have to log into that's not
Yeah.
it wouldn't be considered publicly available. I think somebody has to issue you credentials for.
Okay. All
So
right.
like for us specifically, like we have our own website,
Yep.
OSINTOutput.com. Anybody can go there and view it.
Yep.
Anybody can look at any of our information. We don't have a screen that says give us your email address or log in. But what about everything on the back end, right? Where I have content that's waiting to be released, I haven't posted yet, where I go and edit the website. If somebody were to use credentials on there,
Yeah. Well, that's not publicly available.
exactly.
So I have a question similar, but not quite the same. So if I'm looking for an academic article, right? And I go to a website and it goes, hey, you can't look at this article. But I look at the URL and it says login equals false. And if I change that false to true, then I can look at the article. Is that publicly available?
So we do that all the time in open source.
Yeah.
Where
I know.
we alter things on the website to make it viewable. And the answer to that, and it's been upheld before, is yes.
Okay.
Because if you fail to put certain safeguards in place, short of straight up penetrating an information system, which isn't allowed unless you've been authorized to do it, then yeah, you can do it.
All right. All right.
Because that happens all the time. Of course, go through less, I guess, innocuous ways to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm fairly certain that if I was looking for that sort of article and I couldn't get it that way, but I could find the author, I could email the author, and oftentimes they share that stuff.
And that's one of the things that you have to understand about your authorities as well, because there's differences between active and passive OSINT, and then also hacking an OSINT that we're going to get into as well. So if you're allowed to interact with other individuals, I mean, that could be a great boon for you. That's one of the things that
That's the easiest way
Yeah.
to
Belling-
get personal information.
Bellingcat does it all the time to great effect. They establish relationships over time. Now they have a great community between Discord and their website and other journalist circles where they could probably get into contact with anybody in any regime on Earth within probably 5 to 10 minutes of reaching
Yeah.
out and talking to people.
Yeah,
So,
you don't do what Cambridge Analytica did.
yeah, tell us about Cambridge Analytica,
right.
Chris.
So this was 12 years ago, maybe longer, where they released this app, and it was connected to Facebook, and it was your digital life or whatever. So people would get on this app, they'd fill out this information, and they'd get it was a psychology quiz. And so what that app did is that collected all the information that the users gave it, but it also, because Facebook didn't have the appropriate protections, or this also did not violate Facebook's terms of service, is if you use that app, Cambridge Analytica was able to not only get your data, but all of your friends' data. Every friend that you had on Facebook, they then had access to all of that same private data. Or data, not private.
Facebook voluntarily just handed this data over to a third party.
Facebook did not voluntarily hand it over, but when Cambridge Analytica took it, it did not violate the terms of service of Facebook, which they got
Oh.
fined $5 billion for.
So Meta, well, was it Meta at this time? I think it was just Facebook. Like, I don't think old Zuck had.
Yeah, it wasn't Meta yet.
Yeah, so Facebook, did they contracted this firm, right?
No. Or they may have, I don't know. But I
Okay.
just know that this app existed, and they just had fun with it. So did they cross a line by collecting the data of potentially 87 million users? But we know that they psychologically profiled at least 23 million users. But do you think that they crossed a line collecting all that data?
Oh. That's really difficult because that's the reason why you employ a team of legal experts to advise you what's right and what's wrong. So I think in their minds, they said, hey, they allowed us to have access to all of this data through an API pool. So we're going to collect it.
Yeah.
And then this is our primary purpose as a company to provide this information back or to tell customers how best to blah, 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 whatever their charter was.
Yeah.
But as far as going and
Well, let's not talk about what they did with it yet.
Yeah. As far as going and doing what they did, probably. I mean, like, obviously people thought it was bad.
Well, so it became bad because what they did is they took all those psychological profiles that they were able to develop, and then they micro-targeted political ads in the US, in the UK, and some other areas of the EU. So I think that's where they crossed the line. I think collecting the data, they were technically okay, because there's also the chance that when they developed this app, they didn't know that they were going to collect everyone's data. They may have thought that they were just going to collect the user's data who used the app to then regurgitate whatever they needed to regurgitate. So I think when they really crossed the line is when they started micro-targeting political ads based on psychological profiles that people didn't consent to.
Sorry, I'm actually reading about Cambridge Analytica. The last time I looked at this was, oh my God, 7 years ago.
That's an old story, man.
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at it.
It did promote a complete shift in Facebook's terms of services, and a bunch of other websites.
Okay. Now we've mentioned this a whole lot. In terms of service. So one of the things that you learn early on when you start first conducting OSINT is that a lot of things that you want access to are going to be hidden behind login walls, right?
Yeah.
And most of the websites that have logins, they put them there for a few specific reasons. Number one is to prevent abuse, right?
Yeah.
It makes sure that people don't go there and massively scrape their website, and so it DDoSes them till the website goes down, especially if they get really popular.
Yeah.
So having logins for certain content helps prevent that because then you have a barrier. The second reason is, and this is true of every developed nation across the entire world, is there are certain websites where people under a certain age cannot access that content legally.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So if you think pornography, adult content.
I was thinking about Archie comic books, but yeah, yours works too, man.
Pornography, adult content. Of course, people under a certain age in that given jurisdiction cannot access it. And then also in the United States, we have COPPA, which is the Children Online Privacy Protection Act, which prevents children under the age of 13 for having logins to certain websites unless their parent approves that activity. And even if the parent doesn't approve it, they still can't have an account if they say their age is below 13. So, but I've seen even my kids attempt to access these websites because they have their friends, and I've seen my other family members underage access it. Is that actually violating a law if the kid does it of their own accord, or just a terms of service for a website?
I think it's more a terms of service violation.
Yeah,
because I don't expect someone under 13 to be prefrontally cortexed well enough to go, this is going to be the consequences of this.
Yeah, and if the website is discovered to have people under a certain age on there, and they were added without consent, that's a huge violation.
The website needs to remove them. The owners, the moderators need to be responsible for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So breaking websites' terms of service doesn't necessarily say that you're violating a law. is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I don't think me clicking I'm over 18 in middle school was, I don't think that was violating anything.
Yeah, like it just said, "Hey, are you over this?" And it'll just let you right in.
Yes, I am. And in 3 hours, I'm gonna be excited that I'm now over 18.
Exactly. So, terms of service, like it's a really huge gray area because they have to take into account what's available in the local jurisdiction plus the jurisdiction in which they operate, and then also the values of that society, which is huge because
Yeah.
one of the things that really upset me was again, like I've said before, both Chris and I have been to other countries, mainly because of the time period in which we served, Muslim countries. They don't allow their citizens to access pornographic websites. So one of the classes that I was in was sociology. And there was a project that I was assigned where I had to access a website that was categorized as adult. So it was blocked in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So what I have to do?
Yeah, you had to go around it.
Yeah.
You'd
So I don't.
VPN your way out.
So
or
I used.
VM.
Yeah, I used a VPN. So it's up to the website to do it.
Yeah. I think purpose means a lot there too. You weren't just violating the law for whatever, you were doing it for an academic reason.
Yeah, it wasn't. And again, the only reason why that website was categorized as adult was because it just happened to talk about sexual relations.
Yeah.
It actually didn't show any images at all or any descriptions of the act. It just happened to talk about sexual relations in general. So
now I think where a line should be drawn for OSINT practitioners is if you go to a website to intentionally violate its terms of service.
yes. And again, this is the law only applies if you're given authorities to not violate the law.
That was perfect. Tell me more.
So, one of the things that we've come to understand is that the largest APTs in the world, advanced persistent threats, they aren't large hacker conglomerates that operate independently of a nation state. They are a nation state.
Yes.
So they are given
North Korea.
Yeah. North Korea, Russia, China, United States, and along with the other Five Eyes countries, they are the largest, I guess, abusers, if you will, of violating of what can be constituted as hacking, because they conduct it all the time. Mainly, it's for their citizen self-interest, is what they say. So they target other countries and say, hey, we're taking down this website, or we're going to make sure their missile defense system is offline. But still, that's a hacking activity that's conducted by a nation state. So while, yes, technically they're violating international law and domestic law for their own country, they're given latitude for that because it's done under the guise of, or the auspices of, a government activity.
Oh, so state-sponsored hacking is legal. Is it ethical?
So yeah, that's, and in quotations, that's legal, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're impacting another country, that violates international law and their law.
Yeah.
But in your country, if it's done under the auspices of a government activity,
national security, protection of the people,
and that's where attribution comes into account, which I think we had an episode talking about attribution. I recently posted a blog about it. But yes, absolutely, it is allowed. But going back to the ethical part, is it ethical? And the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Because it's a cyber operative who has been given the leeway to conduct this activity, and it's allowed.
Okay.
So,
I think that depends on what they're doing and how they're doing it, for the ethics stuff. So if it's a cyber operative, nation state sponsored hacker, and they're exploring national defense, whatever, and so they're poking around in other countries' systems for better defense on us. Cool. If they're looking at journalists because a journalist said something they didn't like, even if it's state sponsored, to me that wouldn't be ethical, even though it's legal.
well, no, I think they're allowed to read what a journalist wrote.
But if they're starting to either send them phishing links or try to get into their systems if they're using Pegasus in some sort of way to track their movements or what they're talking about.
So what if this was a journalist who worked for Russia, who was writing bad things about the United States?
Well, I mean, so there we go. It's maybe. I don't. I think journalists should be allowed to write bad things about the U.S.
Yeah. Which is one of the things that's, and going back to my previous statement about it being ethical about a hacker, it's ethical for a hacker to do that every single time. Yeah, it's definitely a gray area when you get into it.
So
it's ethical for the organization.
Are we talking more about the results of what's done with that? If just storing it or having it going, hey, this person's not going to like us no matter what we do, but now we kind of have a reasoning for it. But if we then start to harass that person or try to get them fired or send local authorities after them, are we then crossing a line?
I feel like we go into Machiavellian territory here, where we say the ends justify the means for what we're trying to do for everything. And I mean, honestly, the answer is just no. You shouldn't. You have a right to privacy no matter what, which is something we haven't really talked about so far, which we can get into next. You have a right to privacy when it comes to your data online, but to what extent does that really cover all of your activities online?
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. I think when we're talking about ethics in hacking and OSINT work, in personal or public investigations in one way or another, I think the purpose of it matters more than either the legality and then that determines the morality.
Yeah, so let's talk more about hacking in general. Okay, so what, in my mind, when I think of hacking, at least before now, right? When I first started out in OSINT, even before that, when I thought of hacking, there's this great movie that I watched, and it's heavily dramatized. Every single hacker on earth laughed at it at that time. It's called Hackers.
Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, he was in that. Angelina Jolie was in that, and it was a very flowery kind of. Here's what upsets me
They were
most about
hacking
that.
in a subway car, dude.
So this is what upsets
with
me
90s
really.
internet.
Really upset me is they were accessing systems via a graphical user interface, and it's like they had these awesome graphics every single time they went into these low-level systems, and it just you don't ever see that. That whenever you access a system, all you see is a file directory, and that's it. Then you have to know where to go. And don't get me wrong, they did show file directories that were, I guess,
well, they went into actual cyberspace.
it's just ridiculous. And they're sitting there talking about how their CPU, that number one, like their computers didn't even have GPUs to render some of those graphics. I'm just going off on a tangent here. Number two, like to actually stream that data and video back to your computer in that quality, you didn't have a modem back then that could do that. This was 1996, my dude, when when the movie came out. So 95 was when it was filmed. But
I will say the thing that they got right, which people make fun of all the time now, is them just hitting a couple of keys going, I'm in. It's like, no, back then, that's all you had to do. Like, there weren't all these protections. Like, hacking wasn't even a crime till like 92.
So I would love to say that I both agree and heavily disagree with that statement. I agree that back then it was a much simpler, even hackers today will say like it was a much simpler time back then
easy.
because
you could accidentally do it.
Yeah, you could just go to a website, click on an icon, and then all of a sudden you're looking at the bank credentials for a person.
Yeah.
People didn't know how to set up websites back then. It was just like, hey, we'll contract this out and then host a status.
You could find hidden directories just by randomly clicking on a web page.
Yes, and then also putting in very common subdirectories into a website, because if you think about a website as a location on your computer, that's all those slashes are. You're just putting in slash something to get to it.
There were hidden directories in like the top, 18 pixels or whatever. You just click up there and go somewhere.
And the reason why I heavily disagree with you is because hackers still do that today. They'll go like, "Oh, I'm in," but the impetus behind that, like everything leading up to that, is probably hours and days of work. They
So
sat there trying to get around all these protections in order to get to that one point where they're like, "Hey guys, I'm in."
one of my favorite comedy skits, and then again, we're going on this tangent now, is this guy walks into a room and there's this guy sitting in front of a computer. He's like, "Hey, I need you to get into the Pentagon." And I'm just making that one up. I don't think that's actually in the video. And the guy's like, "Okay." And he types something on the keyboard and he goes, "Okay, how we doing?" He's like, "I don't know. I got to wait on this guy to respond to my email." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I got to make him fall in love with me over the next 6 weeks before I can get access to it." And then, the guy comes back in 2 months and he goes, "I'm in."
Um, and that's another thing too, talking about government online databases when we're saying publicly available. Technically, government databases, when connected to the internet, are considered publicly available, but accessing some of them without certain credentials is a violation of terms of services and laws too. So, but hacking in general, what is it? At the most basic, low level definition, it is getting an information system to do something that it's not supposed to do, and you're causing it. That's what hacking is at its most basic function.
Yeah, and you can hack people. We've discussed this in previous
Yeah,
episodes.
social engineering. I think one of the references, one of the examples I had before about hacking, and it was done by a 9-year-old. Believe it or not, they were playing. I don't think it was Candy Crush, but it was some type of derivative or made by the same company. And in Candy Crush, whenever you can't complete a level, you use a life, and you
Yeah.
start out with 5 lives, and it takes 2.5 hours.
To rebuild all 5.
Exactly. However, since you know it takes 2.5 hours, what's stopping you from setting your phone forward 2.5
Yeah. Oh, I
hours?
did that in Afghanistan when my phone was useless.
Yeah, to get all those 5 lives back, and that's what this 9-year-old did. So, in essence, getting
Yeah.
this program to do something that it wasn't supposed to do,
Hack the phone
she hacked the phone.
or the game.
Exactly. So at hacking at its most level form, is that getting an information system to do something that it's not supposed to do for you
Yeah.
specifically.
Even if it's just let you in to look around.
Yep. Look but don't touch can still be considered hacking unless you're allowed to do it. Now, what else can we talk about? Oh, privacy online. So, Chris, do you believe that you have the right to be private online?
I believe I have the right to be private in all things that I do.
Why is that?
Am I private online? No.
Well, why do you think you have the right to be private in everything that you do?
Because I don't think anything that I personally do should be publicized.
But you go into public spaces and do things.
I try not to do private things in public spaces.
But what if somebody were to follow you around in those public spaces and literally jot down everything that you're doing? Are they allowed to do that?
They are allowed to do that, and that bothers me.
Okay. So when it comes,
I don't want to interrupt them because I'm a good human, but it bothers me.
So if someone were to follow you around with a pen and piece of paper in a public space, write down every action that you take during the day, that's allowed.
Depending on what they do with it. But yes, that is allowed to do.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I can also look in my neighbor's yard, but I'm not writing reports on how often they hang laundry on the line.
Exactly. Right. So that's the thing. If you're in a public space, everybody technically can be looked at. Notes can be taken down about them. They can be surveilled to a certain extent, depending on the type of surveillance. Right.
Yep.
It can't be overly intrusive. So people could do that. Now let's take it into the digital frontier. Right. Take it into cyberspace, as you so eloquently mentioned earlier. If somebody were to do that online, is that allowed?
Depends on where we are and what you need to access it. If
So-
it's Facebook, yes, it's allowed, even though I don't want it to. Facebook does have some things where you can try to block users, and some things you can block them completely, and other things they can still follow you and you not know it. However, there should be practices depending on what they're doing. If they're just following me or if they're investigating me, it's different because then they have different authorities.
That's the one thing I was trying to get at, right? Whenever a government agent acts undercover, then they have to be given certain authorities before they're allowed to do that. And that's one thing that, from my understanding so far, is drastically different about what's IRL in real life as compared to what's online.
That's fair. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if again somebody was following me around and they were taking notes every single day about me and it was in a public space, I couldn't stop them. They could follow me to the park, they could follow behind me on the road, right? I do have a right to not be harassed. So as long as they weren't stopping me from doing whatever activity I was trying to do, then that's fine. Um, but if they engage with me and they choose to tell me that who they excuse me, if they do not choose to tell me who they are or lie to me about it, they better have a good reasoning
Yeah,
behind
there's
why they
different
did that.
authorities there. Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing applies online. If you're being tracked, you have to be. It usually comes out in court.
If you're being tracked, you're absolutely being tracked online.
It depends on what level of tracking you're being tracked. So it usually comes out in court where you're like, and I love watching the dramatizations of these for mafia members. They're like, I invited you to my cousin's wedding. We danced together. So it's kind of like that where it's like they were undercover for months to years, and that one it's a very sensitive relationship dealing with other people in real life. Whereas online, you wouldn't know you were friends
No,
with a cop
no.
for years
Yeah,
before it
yeah.
finally came out and said, "Hey, we've been tracking you since 2022 when you first posted this, and then we saw you conduct this activity, so we have all this evidence backing up what led to
Yeah.
this
Gotcha,
event."
James.
Yep. James is taken down. Yes, finally. Thank you. Now, uh, talking about ethics and legality and being tracked, one of the things I do want to get back to just for a few minutes, not super long, is if we know we're being tracked, what can we do about it?
Be cautious about what we either exhibit publicly, privately, or online.
When, but shouldn't we want to feel free to post things that we're either passionate about or know that we want other people to read? Should we have to necessarily be cautious for everything that we go to and post?
No, I mean, you should be free, but I think what's important, especially in this day and age of technology, is to be conscious of what we're putting out there and then what can be seen from that.
And when it says what can be seen from that is what can be used against you.
Yes.
And a lot of the times people don't realize that the things that can be used against you, they're thinking in the legal sense of the term. Like
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
I'm
No.
not going to post illegal content online. Like I'm not going to post a meth lab that I have next door
Yeah.
that I'm running.
But
Right?
I don't want my cam getting called up and being like, "Hey, I need $150."
Yeah, exactly. And another thing to extend to is your reputation with your company.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of companies now who are putting in their employee handbook that, hey, we have this reputation for being good within our business circles, right? And we want to make sure that the supply vendors that we work with and our customers know that we are employing ethical people who do the right thing and that they're good and upstanding citizens. So know that your social media will be monitored when you get employed at this company.
As an OSINT investigator, due diligence is part of my job.
Yeah. So due diligence when it comes to that, just know that if you do post something online, your employer has the right, depending on where you're located at.
Yep.
This is the biggest thing,
Yeah.
right? Both Chris and I are in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we are at will employees. At any time, our employer or us can go, we're done.
Oh, don't tell them that.
Yeah, let them know, right? They didn't know that until just now.
Don't listen, boss. Don't listen.
Just go, hey, we're done with you. So they have the levity to do that. But other countries that have stronger worker protections, that's I won't say impossible, right? But it's very difficult establishing a case to release an employee when they're exercising their right to free speech. So
Yeah. And I will add, in due diligence checks or in research into potential employees, it's important for the OSINT investigator to verify the information that they find in a way that, because sometimes if you create a false verification, if you go, oh, hey, I found this person said that, I hate this group of people. And it's like, all right, we're not going to hire them because xenophobia or whatever. And then I find out that it was just a name match. Like, so you have to be diligent in your ethics and how you verify information
That
and
actually,
your reporting.
yeah, that happened recently here in the United States where, and it happens all the time. And a good example of this, not even recent, but going back, is you've come up with a name or you have something, and then people say it's this person when in reality it's not. I have actually three different examples. So let's start with the recent one and go back. The first one is Renee Nicole Good, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So as soon as that happened, people wanted to find out who she was, go in her background, and someone happened to find the name match and found a police record where it was the things that this individual had done. They weren't great things. I think some was like assault and battery, like failure to appear, stuff like that. But the first and middle names were backwards. So
Yeah.
they was Nicole Renee Good, Renee Nicole. So that's one, right? Understanding that it was a name match, but it may have not been the right person. And I think someone, if I'm not mistaken, even took it farther than that and replaced the photo of the police report with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
That
and
happens in a lot of forums.
that's a huge ethical consideration whenever you're conducting investigations online, because any information that's delivered to your computer, and I don't know, and nobody ever thinks about this anymore. When I finally make it realized in an OSINT course, it blows their minds.
I can make a tweet, say anything I want, and
Yeah.
then give it to you as evidence.
Whenever information is delivered to your computer, you aren't receiving it as you see it. It is an application on your computer that is rendering it for you so you can ingest it as a human being, right? So you can see it. It's delivered to you as ones and zeros. And then the compiler, which in this case is the browser, takes all of that code and then turns it into something you can see. So it's delivered as HTML, JavaScript, CSS, right? And anybody can read this. It's a high level programming language. So what's stopping you from going on there, adjusting information on that website, capturing it, and then sending it to your customer?
Ethics are.
Ethics are. But the answer is there are no physical safeguards.
There's
on the
no
computer.
legal safeguards against
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Unless something else happens after
Don't get
that.
me wrong. If when they go to that URL and view the content, they're going to be like, "Well, this isn't matchup at all." But again,
If they don't trust you.
yeah, and they should. For due diligence investigations, typically, from my experience, customers usually go with the word of the investigator.
Yes.
Typically,
Yes.
In legal investigations, never the case. You have to back up everything with
Multiple sources, chain of custody. Yes.
That's the biggest thing, right? When it comes to ethics and legal investigation as compared to due diligence investigations, typically different. So that's the first example, right? With Cole Renee Good, Renee Nicole Good. The second one is the Boston Marathon bombing. There are armchair investigators on forums who will go out and try to figure out what's going on. Boston Marathon bombing, horrible, right? Backpack exploded near the finish line, injured a bunch of people. I can't remember exactly how many deaths.
But there was a ton of misinformation that came out about the bombers.
Yeah, everybody wanted to find it. It was in an area with public CCTV cameras, so anybody could follow in.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that law enforcement did was, of course, go online to see what was happening. Reddit said they identified the bomber. Turned out to be a complete false trail.
Yep.
I think it was hours later at night, police caught up to the actual bombers. There were two of them, and if I'm not mistaken, one died in the shooting. The other died later from injuries after being taken away from the scene. So the third one was the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last year.
Which one?
The one where his ear was grazed.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So that individual, there was a lot of misinformation.
A ton about who this guy was, what his motivations were.
That was coming out about it. And I think they, again, had a name match where this person with the same name had donated to a Democratic political fund.
Yep.
Right? But later on, they actually captured the correct individual. At least that's what they put out there in public press release. Found out that he was, in fact, a registered Republican. If I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So
that is true.
And if I'm wrong, I apologize to everyone out there. But Again, just goes to show you that just because you have a name match or you even a facial recognition match,
You verify your information before you share it.
yeah, because computers make mistakes all the time.
And so do humans. Okay, here's a good question. You've been sanctioned or authorized to do a legitimate investigation into an individual. So you're going through their social media, all of this stuff, and you come across a comment that they put somewhere, or some other hidden post that identifies personal information that's not relevant to your investigation. Can you collect it? And then what do you do with it?
So during the course of your investigation, if it's not relevant, but there are pieces of information on there that are relevant, it can be filed as long as it's protected. That's one of
Okay.
the things I've always understood is if you can collect it because it's publicly available, but as far as being delivered, I think that's where you stop, right? Because that does occur all the time. If at the moment you look at it and you go like, this is in no way applicable to this investigation at all, I shouldn't include it. Of course, probably not collect it at that point, but there's nothing stopping you from doing it.
And then how do you handle a situation where that may inform your analysis?
If later on you realize that it was something that impacted you to such a degree, then you probably should include it.
Okay. All right. That's fair. So if
Yeah,
it informs your analysis, then it's included.
because you have to find a way to back up why you make your opinions, which that's
Yeah.
all. If anybody ever wants a one-on-one on analysis, if you're just getting these
Oh,
circles or
God.
never had a course on
I
it,
love talking about this stuff.
yeah, analysis is just an opinion based on the investigator's experience. That literally, at the end of the day, that's all it is. There are structured analytical techniques that we can put into place to make sure that our biases are left behind, so that all we have available
Is a
are
rigorous,
facts.
disciplined process.
Yeah, it's facts to inform, or at least evidence to inform, because evidence sometimes aren't facts.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's
true.
because you have expert testimonies. To inform it, at the end of the day, yeah. But if it's something that definitely impacts your analysis in some way or another, whether it's to say, hey, this almost certainly did not happen or it almost certainly did happen, then you
Okay.
probably should include it.
What if it biases you and then your analysis?
That's why we have training, critical thinking. That's why we have structured analytic techniques to make sure that our analysis isn't impacted by our own internal biases, or which some people tend to forget, our organizational biases as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think I would agree with that. I think it's important to note that almost every OSINT investigator that I know has a folder of irrelevant information that they forgot to delete.
That's for every single investigation. One of the things that I used to do and still do to this day is, regardless of whether it's relevant or not, if I'm just delivering collection to a customer, I typically include it because it was captured at the time that I thought was relevant for the investigation. And if they choose not to include it as a part of their analysis, then that's their decision at the end of the day. And they can reach back to me if they need an
That's
opinion.
fair if you're just delivering results and you're not offering a package with it.
Yeah, a lot of the times, whenever for OSINT investigators, they don't really have impact on the analysis portion for the organization if you're just a collector,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that determine whether or not what information needs to be included. So ethics and legality.
Yeah.
Did we miss anything?
I think one of the overall things that is super important as you do investigations to make sure that you're on the right side of both ethics and the law is to develop your research question and then develop a research plan or a collection plan so you know what information kind of falls into it. Now, granted, the world of OSINT, you have to be free flowing, you have to have the ability to pivot, and you have to have the ability to adjust form based on how the investigation goes. But if you have a clearly defined question and you have a clear research or collection plan, then I think more often than not, you'll end up on the right side of both legality and ethics.
And that clearly defined question, it's rare that you ever get one where it leads you to the information you need. That is working that out with a customer is really pulling teeth.
30% of the job is defining your questions.
Yeah, and when it comes to collection as well, rapport with your customer is huge too. Telling them what you can and can't do. I have been in situations before where I said, I cannot get this information and I will tell you exactly why. If that's unacceptable, I'm sorry. But if we want to continue forward, this is all I can provide. And it didn't turn out well for a relationship. Yeah,
Yeah,
you get
some
upset.
people don't like being told no,
Yeah.
but I mean, sometimes you have to.
If it's legitimately not there, that's the reason why whenever you hear about people talking about certain sensitive events, they go, I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of blah, 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 because they legitimately either have no information to tell you
Yeah,
about it
which is
or,
more frequently than the other.
yeah, exactly. Because whenever someone says, I can neither confirm nor deny, they're not saying like I'm blowing you off. They're saying either I don't have it or I'm not allowed to tell you.
Yeah,
And if you keep asking me, I'm just going to walk away.
yeah. Or what I say has no relevance, but it's gonna sound like it does.
Yeah. And that's something that needs to be said as well. If you're passing something off as an expert product, you need to say whether or not it's your opinion or whether it's backed up by evidence and
Yep.
experience.
Yeah.
So with that, ethics and legality, it's something that it changes with every organization that you support.
I think it changes by investigation too.
It can 100% because over time, as technology continues to progress and we start understanding the ubiquitous nature between human beings and information systems and what can and can't be had from them, our ability to collect information drastically changes with our understanding. And it's going to be even harder going forward as, again, the ubiquitous nature continues to creep in our lives. Because now, when Chris and I first came on the scene in analysis, because we're only a few years apart in our careers, we kind of only had structured databases to work with. Someone told us, hey, this is what we've collected, this is what you're allowed to access. And then we just went forward and, tried to do things to earn our paycheck. Now we have people that are coming on the scene where they've had access to internet their entire lives.
Yeah.
They started out
unstructured and they know how to get out there.
and they've been doing it for years. So if they want to find something, they know how to do it. And now they're coming up with more creative solutions that can violate certain ethics and legalities, and they don't know. So that's where education comes into play as well.
Education is tremendously important, and continuing to educate yourself and those around you, those that you work with, finding the new and updated information or the new hotness.
Yeah.
In Will Smith terminology.
Digital natives, as they came to be coined, they don't understand the difference between the private and the real and the public and what's available when it comes to online interaction. They just know that they can go out there and it's available, and that can change over time. So, and that's going to slowly go away. We're
Yeah.
no longer going to know like what the term digital native is unless you read
And
a history
then
book.
As AI advances, it's going to get even harder to separate the two. I do have an ethical question for you. Was it ethical for me to watch Leprechaun 5, Leprechaun into Hood with my 15-year-old?
So, one of the things that I do really like about the United States is that it's, for the most part, when it comes to deciding what you can do within your family, it's hands off, right? So, go ahead. Like
All right,
dude, I think I watched that when I was
it's such a
when
bad
when it
movie.
came out, I think I watched it. That was like what, 95, 96?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I was 7 or 8 years
Ice
old.
Cube and the
Yeah.
Magic Flute, man.
I watched that when I was 7 or 8 years old. Man, that dude gave me nightmares. So,
Leprechaun into Hood.
yeah, I watched isn't The Ring rated R?
Yes,
So that came out in like 2000, 2001.
sure.
I was young then. I watched that as
That
well.
was back when VHS tapes still existed.
Yeah, so you knew exactly like, hey, when I got this VHS tape, I know what to do with it. So That one as well, I probably shouldn't have watched, but
I still had a rewinder at that time.
those were so awesome when you had to take it back to the video store. Like, I don't have time to let it go all the way to the end and rewind. I got to put something else in to record this program.
So every year, the Blockbuster near my house, which, was a 3-minute walk, they would have an end of the year sale where they would just sell a bunch of their old VHSs and video games and stuff, and I would go in there and just collect, man.
We didn't have it. So I never went to Blockbuster growing up. That's one thing that I didn't really get to experience when I was younger. We just had these mom and pop video rental stores that popped up.
We had a bunch of those too.
So if I wanted to go to a Blockbuster, which my parents never did, we had to drive at least 35 minutes to get to one. But we went to Food City.
Oh, yep, yep.
If you're not familiar with Food City, then you've never lived in southeastern United States. Think if you've heard of a Piggly Wiggly, you've been to a Food City.
That's my favorite place, Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly. But yeah, that's where I went. And going back to buying or selling, that's exactly what I did too. The video rental place shut down there at Food City. Walked in and I was so excited. I never owned a copy of Paper Mario.
There it is.
Got it for the rental price, $8 at the time.
Done and done.
So
once was an old man from Madras. No, I'm not going to finish that poem.
Ooh, let's talk about and again going back to that privacy versus public, right? At that time and still today, you can go into rental places and request people's rental records.
Yes.
And what they did.
Yeah.
So if you have the authority to do that and you have a subpoena, you can go in and do it. So that's actually a database that you have to request access to. And if you have never considered that before, I definitely recommend you do. But cops typically do it all the time. They'll see where they live locally. They'll go into the library and say, hey, what did this person check out? And it can give a key to their intentions for what they did. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any topics that you would like Chris and I to talk to in future podcasts, please let us know. We love engagement from our audience. Oh, Chris, you mentioned that you met someone.
Oh, yeah. Someone recognized me by my voice, man. And I was like freaked out. I was freaked out.
Were you just like, again, I don't want to go into details, but were you just randomly walking and you started talking? Or?
Yeah, I was talking to my brother.
This was somewhere out in public?
Yes, yeah, in public. Someone was following me and collecting my data.
With a notepad.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, I know you. And I was like, no, you don't, man.
They were taking waveforms of Chris's voice, and they just said, I know that voice.
Got him.
Yeah. And I got to be honest, that happened to me. I was kind of shocked, too. I was at a training event, and they go, don't you have a podcast? And I said, how do you know that? Because
hey, we have over 150 subscribers now. We are climbing the ranks.
Look out, Joe Rogan.
Here we come. Fastest growing small OSINT podcast from an instructional nature that I've ever heard of.
Yeah, we are in the top 90%, 91% on Spotify, according to our Spotify wrap. So with that being said,
4 new podcasts.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as I said before, if you like our content, please follow, subscribe, like, and also just want to throw this out there. Please visit our webpage if you want to learn more about us. I made it a New Year's resolution this year to publish at least 1 blog a month, and I'm going to bug Chris until he does that as well, because he is the laziest person when it comes to writing blogs.
Oh, yeah.
I have to sometimes kick him physically just to make him move. Don't get me wrong, I'm not much better, but please check out our website. We post on LinkedIn and Blue Sky a few times a week, but this has been the OSINT Output with Chris and Tim.
Tim and Chris.